2:14 local time. 4 F-35I Adir stealth fighters, operating under the call sign Ghost Flight, are slicing through the ink-black silence of the Iranian night, representing $320 million of advanced low observable engineering. The formation glides across the Zagros mountain range, vectoring toward the Fordo nuclear facility 20 miles ahead. Every parameter of this strike package was meticulously calculated to remain entirely invisible to the electromagnetic spectrum. But that invisibility expires the moment Ghost 1, the flight lead, cycles his internal weapons bay doors open for exactly 4 seconds to release a CBU-94 cluster munition. 4 seconds. In the uncompromising language of physics, those 4 seconds cause the F-35I's radar cross-section, RCS, to bloom from the size of a marble to that of a semi-truck. On the ground, the S-band phased array of an Iranian Bavar 373 air defense battery immediately snaps onto the anomaly. Inside the cockpits, the radar warning receivers of all 4 jets erupt in a synchronized high-pitched scream. The Wolfpack has been painted. Target lock confirmed. The silence of the electromagnetic spectrum has been shattered. On the ground, the operators of the Bavar 373 battery do not succumb to the panic typical of conscripts. They are masters of radar algorithms who understand that a stealth fighter's RCS blip will vanish the millisecond the weapons bay doors cycle shut. Instead of a slow, methodical lock-on, they opt for the most ruthless and efficient counter: ripple fire. 4 Sayyad 4B missiles, each weighing nearly 2 tons, leave their launchers in 1 5-second intervals. Their kinematics are computer-optimized for a semi-ballistic arc climbing into the stratosphere to preserve velocity in thin air before screaming down on the target at Mach 5. The 2-0-mile gap is no longer a geographical distance. It is a lethal equation counting down exactly 28 seconds. Over the Link 16 network, the command snaps: Ghost Flight, defend, defend. The $320 million formation instantly disintegrates, morphing into a pre-calculated geometric survival pattern. Ghost 1, the shooter who had exposed the flight, becomes the primary target of the incoming guidance logic. The pilot flips the jet inverted, hauling back on the stick to pull a violent 90-degree offset from the radar's line of sight. This is the geometry of the Doppler notch. Physically, the Bavar's radar works by detecting the frequency shift of moving objects. By flying exactly perpendicular to the radar beam, Ghost 1 reduces his relative radial velocity to 0. For a crucial microsecond, the Iranian fire control computer is tricked into classifying the 5th-generation fighter as a stationary landmark, a mountain, and automatically filters the signal out. In that heartbeat of digital confusion, Ghost 1 slams his nose down, diving into the narrow, jagged corridors of the Zagros Mountains for terrain masking. But the missiles are already airborne, and they need a signal to hunt. Ghost 2 suddenly gains altitude, transforming himself into an electromagnetic lightning rod to shield his lead. The AN/ASQ-239 electronic warfare suite screams at peak power, flooding the incoming seekers with a cone of white noise jamming. However, the Iranian missiles are not blind. Their algorithms immediately pivot to home-on-jam mode, using Ghost 2's own interference as a guiding lighthouse. That was the trap the Israelis had set. As the missiles pivoted toward Ghost 2, the wingman duo of Ghost 3 and 4 sliced across the flight path, releasing a massive density of radar-reflective strips, a chaff wall. Simultaneously, Ghost 2 executed a blink-jamming maneuver, cutting his signal instantaneously before diving into the dark. The combination of the sudden signal blackout and the metallic cloud created a massive ghost centroid in the sky. The first 2 Sayyad 4Bs, their tracking algorithms shattered, plowed into the chaff cloud and detonated in a brilliant, futile overhead fireball. The remaining 2 missiles, equipped with redundant infrared seekers, punched through the interference and locked onto the thermal signature of the F-135 engine as Ghost 1 maneuvered through the valley at 1,500 feet. But this was the final kinematic trap. At 25,000 feet, thin air is a playground for a Mach 5 interceptor. At 1,500 feet, the atmosphere is as thick as a physical wall. A missile traveling 5 times the speed of sound in this dense medium faces catastrophic drag and thermal stress. Ghost 1 pulled a violent 8G brake behind a massive limestone ridge. The Sayyad 4B attempted to follow, but the mathematics of material science said no. At Mach 5 inches thick air, the missile's turning radius stretched for miles. The sheer G-force of the attempted maneuver shredded its control fins. Its trajectory overshot wildly, and the 2-ton steel cylinder slammed into the Zagros cliffs, erupting into a massive marble-shattering landslide. The RWR warnings went silent. The electromagnetic spectrum returned to a cold baseline. Ghost Flight reconvened at 500 feet, entirely intact. While Ghost Flight recalibrates its low, observable profile in the shadows of the Zagros canyons, the mission's true protagonist began its silent descent. The CBU-94 cluster munition is not a high-speed penetrator. It is a mechanical cylinder falling toward what many military analysts considered an indestructible objective: the Fordow Uranium Enrichment Plant. Fordo is a target that defies the standard laws of air supremacy. Buried 80 meters beneath a mountain of solid, high-density granite, the facility is shielded by a geological barrier that renders traditional kinetic weapons obsolete. To understand the scale of this immunity, one must look at the Pentagon's ultimate answer to hardened targets: the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. Even this 4-ton Titan, designed to slice through 60 meters of reinforced concrete, hits a physical wall at Fordo. The compressive strength of the granite bedrock acts as a natural dampener, absorbing the shockwaves of a direct hit and leaving the delicate machinery below undisturbed. In the calculus of destruction, you cannot bomb the mountain into submission. The Iranian engineers understood this, but their tactical foresight extended far beyond geology. They realized that while the mountain was immune to kinetic energy, the enrichment process was a slave to the power grid. To counter this vulnerability, they transformed Fordo into a masterpiece of industrial resilience. Anticipating that Israel would strike the external high-voltage substations, they designed a world-class, automated, redundant power ecosystem. Deep within the subterranean halls, massive UPS, uninterruptible power supply, banks, and heavy-duty diesel generators sit in permanent automated standby. The facility's logic controllers are calibrated for a singular, prestigious metric: a 3-second delta. If the external high-voltage lines are severed, the internal system is programmed to bridge the gap, restoring 100% of the facility's power in exactly 3 seconds. To the Iranian High Command, this 3-second window of darkness was a negligible flicker, a feat of technical pride that rendered Fordow indestructible via power deprivation. They built a fortress designed to outrun the failure of the grid. But as the CBU-94 nears its burst altitude, the mission's calculus is not betting on the failure of the mountain. It is betting on the catastrophic physics contained within those 3 seconds. At exactly 1,000 feet above ground level, the alloy casing of the CBU-94 detonates. But this is not a destructive blast. It is merely the low-order pop of a dispensing fuse, marking the dawn of an entirely different kind of combat: infrastructural warfare. The casing shears away, releasing hundreds of BLU-114B submunitions. Mid-air, these submunitions burst open, dispensing millions of carbon graphite filaments, each thinner than a tenth of a human hair. There is no shockwave, no lethal shrapnel, and absolutely no sound. This spiderweb cloud drifts gently on the desert wind, slowly draping a shimmering, near-invisible veil over the entire 400 kilovolt substation's network of power lines, pylons, and transformers. This weapon does not strike with kinetic energy. It strikes with Ohm's law. Chemically treated carbon graphite is a flawless electrical conductor. When these fragile filaments drape across the bare bus bars and high-voltage lines, they instantly eliminate the safe insulating layer of air. A short-circuit bridge is formed. The consequences are instantaneous and absolutely devastating. A massive 400,000-volt current immediately finds a new path of least resistance and surges straight through the carbon fibers. The terrifying power of the current vaporizes the graphite filaments in a single microsecond. This violent phase transition tears through the surrounding atmosphere, generating blinding plasma arcs that brilliantly illuminate a corner of the night sky. The temperature of the plasma arcs reaches thousands of degrees Celsius. The thermal shock and uncontrolled electrical discharge shatter the ceramic insulators, completely melt massive copper cores, and fiercely boil the dielectric cooling oil inside the central transformers until they violently rupture. The entire multi-million-dollar substation incinerates itself using its own current, without requiring a single gram of TNT from Israel. The power grid burns. The electromagnetic spectrum collapses. 80 meters beneath the granite bedrock, the Fordow mountain officially plunges into darkness. Instantly, the facility's central mainframe triggers its automated response protocols. The Iranian nuclear engineers understand the profound risk of power deprivation. Their IR-6 centrifuges spin at an extreme velocity of 90,000 revolutions per minute. 1,500 rotations per second. At this supersonic rim speed, physical metal bearings would melt from friction in a microsecond. The rotors must remain perfectly suspended by active magnetic bearings, which require an uninterrupted flow of current. To ensure this, the engineers installed a state-of-the-art 0-millisecond uninterruptible power supply to seamlessly bridge the 3-second gap before the diesel generators spool up. A clean power cut would never defeat this fortress. But the CBU-94's graphite cloud did not create a clean power cut. It engineered a chaotic dead short circuit. When the 400,000-volt grid shorted out, it sent a massive transient overvoltage, a power surge rebounding down the heavily shielded underground cables. Moving at the speed of light, this surge bypassed the UPS isolators by a fraction of a millisecond. It instantly fused the solid-state circuits of the variable frequency drives VFDs that govern the centrifuge motors. This is where Faraday's law of induction dictates the final calculus. With the VFDs melted and the grid's electrical resistance plummeting to zero, the thousands of high-frequency motors suddenly lost their load. Electrodynamics dictates that a spinning motor subjected to a short circuit immediately becomes a generator. The immense rotational inertia of the rotors began dumping current back into the fused grid. This triggered a violent phenomenon known as regenerative braking. Instead of safely coasting to a halt, an electromagnetic braking torque seized the bottom axis of the centrifuges in a matter of milliseconds. However, the upper half of the carbon fiber rotors, carrying massive kinetic energy at Mach 2, attempted to maintain its 90,000 revolutions per minute's rotation. The resulting torsional shear stress astronomically exceeded the material limits of the carbon fiber. The cylindrical rotors violently twisted, shattering their own structural matrices from the inside out before the Iranian backup generators even cleared their first rotation. Razor-sharp carbon shrapnel pierced the outer aluminum casings, slicing through pressurized uranium hexafluoride UF6 lines. A mechanical domino effect, a cascade of pure kinetic fragmentation swept through the subterranean halls like a fault-line tsunami. Thousands of perfectly synchronized machines tore each other to pieces. The Israeli Air Force did not drop a bunker buster. They merely used a short circuit to force the machines to shatter themselves with their own kinetic energy. Exactly 3 seconds after the short circuit, the massive Iranian diesel generators roared to life. The automated transfer switches closed with a heavy clack. The emergency red lights vanish, replaced by the brilliant, sterile white glare of full operational power. The engineer's masterpiece of redundancy worked flawlessly, but the light only illuminates a strategic nightmare. The destruction of the IR-6 centrifuges was not merely a mechanical failure, it was a chemical amputation. When the carbon fiber rotors shattered, the razor-sharp shrapnel sliced through the heavily pressurized cascade lines containing uranium hexafluoride UF6. In the uncompromising world of chemistry, when UF6 gas escapes and meets the natural humidity of the air, it reacts violently to form hydrofluoric acid HF, an intensely toxic, highly corrosive, and radioactive gas. The facility's state-of-the-art underground HVAC system, specifically designed to keep the server rooms cool, is now actively pumping a lethal, lung-dissolving acidic fog through every corridor, elevator shaft, and control room. This was the true calculus of the Israeli strike. They didn't just break the machines, they weaponized the environment. You cannot simply pour new concrete or order a repair crew into a subterranean hall saturated with radioactive acid. It will take Tehran months just to safely vent the toxic atmosphere, years to send hazmat teams to decontaminate the granite walls, and potentially a decade to bypass international sanctions just to rebuild the shattered carbon fiber supply chain. For 2 decades, the Iranian High Command spent billions of dollars drilling 80 meters into solid, high-density granite. Their ultimate obsession was to build a fortified, impenetrable underground tomb that absolutely no one could ever get inside, thanks to a cheap graphite short circuit and the laws of electrodynamics. They finally succeeded. Not even they can get inside anymore. Now, if you want to continue following the strategic strikes of Operation Epic Fury, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Goodbye.